Last time I talked about Ashita no Joe, I gave it a double plus through approximately the first half of the first season. When I'd finished watching the first season, the double plus still stood, although much of the final arc was relatively weak. The season ended on a note that I would have considered acceptable as a series ending, yet not as a season ending. Spoiler for approximately the next 10 seconds. Basically what happens is Joe realizes he's a true brawler who can't be satisfied within the confines of the ring, thus he returns to the streets and fades into oblivion. Because of this, I did not see how a second season could be possible. I couldn't see any good reason for getting Joe back in the ring, aside from a cash grab by the author and or studio. It seemed like it would be such a betrayal of the first season's ending that I wasn't even sure I wanted to watch the second season. Well, I ended up watching the second season anyway, and it actually turned out to be really good. You see, Ashita no Joe pioneered many things you see in modern anime. Unfortunately, one of those things was the filler arc. You know why that last arc of Ashita no Joe seemed suspiciously weak? Because it never happened. Ashita no Joe 2 turns back the clock to episode 54 of the first season, thus admitting that the final 25 episodes of the first season were all filler and should be ignored. Interestingly enough, the series also alters its own history in another conspicuous manner. Season 1 aired from 1970 to 1971. Season 2 aired from 1980 to 1981. For some reason, they decided to update the setting of the anime to 1980 as well. It's not a big deal, but it is a slight distraction that's impossible to miss. So here we are in 1980, and Joe's ready to take on the world. If you thought the same situation in Hajime no Ippo led to some hilarious racism, you should check out an anime that's a few decades older. Some of it probably wasn't racist for its time, but would definitely be considered racist nowadays, and some of it was definitely racist for its time. The only reason you don't hear anyone bitching about it is because no one with that much of a wussy personality makes it 100 episodes into Ashita no Joe. One of the other problems with Ashita no Joe's second season is that there's way too much tragedy. It becomes the rule, not the exception, and thus loses its impact. Despite this, I'd say that overall the second season is actually a little stronger than the first season. While the best of Ashita no Joe is definitely the best of the first season also has a weaker beginning, not to mention the filler at the end. In other words, the second season also gets a double plus. So if there are two things to take away from this review: 1. Watch Ashita no Joe. 2. Skip to the second season after watching episode 54.